Bernette 08 straight stitch machine may be a high-speed, high-power machine, but in a way it is no different from any sewing machine. When you sew 2, 4, 8 plus layers, you need to make sure that your stitch length is proportional to the thicknesses you are using. That will vary on the thickness of the base material and how many layers you have together. Basically, the old rule where the thicker the material, the longer the stitch in order to feed the seam applies to the Bernette straight stitch machine. So if it's a bag where you have straps with multiple layers on faux leather, you will want a longer stitch to get that beautiful stitch definition. If it is a finer fabric like chiffon and you're just piecing together, then you can actually use a shorter stitch and a finer needle to get the same results. So always calibrate on scraps first and make sure you use all representative layers that will go into your projects. Then you can note your stitch lengths and go ahead and make the project. Here's an example with faux leather where if I sew 2 layers together, a stitch length of 1, you could tell, would be too short. It would risk cutting my material. If I go to a stitch length of 2, that would give me a structural seam. And I'm using heavy upholstery thread, let's say, that you would use on a bag, something thicker. And that looks like a nice dense line of stitching, but it's a little too short. So for this material, I will probably have to go to a stitch length of 3 to get a seam that looks elegant on the bag. It is structural, but all visually appealing. So that is for basic seaming. Now, if I double the layers, let's say I add a strap, I go to 4 layers, then my stitch length of 3 is a bit short. If I want to go to a stitch length of 4, I can retest this and then compare. I always do this on scrap before the project, so all representative layers have been tested. So for straps with 4 layers, when they're folded, this longer stitch would look much better than even a 3mm stitch. So always calibrate the stitch length for the visual and structural results you want on your materials with all representative layers of the materials before you launch on the project.